Oh, look at this little sissy millennial and him playing his digital gear. Real men play through tubes. Okay, good day everyone. It's me, Leon Todd, of course. Your favourite rock guitar pal from down under. Sorry this video's a bit late, got held up in traffic by the kangaroos on my way to Macca's for some brekkie, and I got stuck in line at the servo waiting on the dunny. But I'm here now and you guys are gonna love today's video because I'm doing the worst of Namm 2019. Even better, we got special guest Ryan Agard from Plunge Shit Studios getting in on the action. What a right cunt that guy is, eh? Dead set. Before we get to that, I've got a sneak peek at tomorrow's video for you all with, you guessed it, another unboxing. Big thanks to Angus Bushwhackers Gear Emporium for loaning me this beauty. Now I'm just gonna take out my new pocket knife here. I'll do it. Alright, let's take a look at the good shout. Wait. Oh, this must be some sort of mistake. I asked for the new one. This is... Motherfucker!
All right, so we're doing the worst of Namm, and this is going to bring out all the inbuilt passions and strong reactions, and all the from all the fanboys. But I figured we should probably start with Gibson because there's nothing like a worst of video than starting with Gibson, and I guess the new 2019 guitars, which I'm going to bring up in my browser so I can properly have a look at it. Here we go. So yeah, the headline is Gibson goes back to the golden era with new 2019 guitars. And my first reaction to that is like, how many times have they gone back to the golden era? And which golden era are they even talking about? I guess they mean the 50s and the 60s, right?
I guess that's what they're going for.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's sort of like, it seems like based on everybody's reactions to like the 2018 models, and they weren't at Namm last year and all that kind of stuff, that it's pretty hard to get any worse for them. So sort of anything would be an improvement, and it just seems like it's like back to boring. That's how I'd describe it.
I'd agree. I feel I'm in the minority with a lot of this stuff. Like, I get Gibson's kind of that traditionalist brand that it's hard for them to innovate too much without, again, the fanboys, screeching. But, I like the stuff they were doing with the Les Paul and the SG modern players, the sunken in humbuckers. And I guess it didn't sell well. Can't say I'm super shocked, but it's just like, for me, here's my dilemma. I've never been a person that says you have to innovate, you have to do this. As long as you put out something that's good and an improvement in value of some sort, I'm all right with it. But, you're kind of a guitar collector, I would say. Tell me one reason that you would buy a brand new 2019 Gibson versus a 20, 30-year-old Gibson.
There's no reason. I actually haven't played one that has made, maybe a studio, honestly. Like, I saw the studios, like, kind of in the lineup, and that's sort of the best value American-made Gibson you can get, in my opinion, and has been for a long time. It feels like, I always remember growing up, and I had a few friends who had studios, the wine red ones, and they were always really, really good. And it feels like it took people a while to really warm up to them, but no binding, no frills, that kind of thing. So that's one really good thing, I think. That's probably what I would get. And I know a few people who are absolute Gibson aficionados, and they all have studios as their like backup touring guitar. So that's kind of a win. But I mean, looking at the spec, it's saying Gibson Les Paul Standard 60 spec, Gibson Les Paul Standard 50 spec, Gibson Les Paul Standard 50 spec with P90s. It's really I just look at that and kind of go, yeah, what's the difference? I imagine there would have been so much variation at the time due to like inconsistencies in production anyway, that you can take two 59 Les Pauls and they're going to be different guitars. Or you can take, so it's yeah, I mean, it's just sort of, maybe I'm just super cynical, but it's sort of like super, I mean, the Explorer looks cool. If that's like actually white African limber in that like Carina finish, that's cool. The SG with the Maestro Vibrola, I think they're just a terrible tremolo system. I own one. It's like the worst thing ever. So that's never anything I would buy. But the studio's cool. So that's definitely a thing. But it just feels, there's something about the aesthetic of modern Gibsons that they're trying to be so traditional, but because so many of the species of timber are either like endangered or they're just extinct, that rather than try to like actually contextualize the guitar and go, hey, here was the best stuff we could get at the time, which made a 50s Les Paul good or whatever, or these were the techniques that we used. Why don't we do the same thing now rather than make a, like carbon copy and just try to use the same ingredients, even if the ingredients are shit. It just kind of seems like one of those things where it's like, they're making a recipe for spaghetti bolognese and they're reading some recipe from the 1950s written in Italian. So they go and import Italian tomatoes and they go into cold storage and they get ruined rather than just use the stuff that's around them and kind of deal with the variations in the recipe and embrace it for what it is.
Yep, 100% agree.
If that makes sense.
And I'm also partial as far as their modern line goes to the lower end stuff. The only Gibson I actually own is a SGJ. It's not even a junior. And it's the best SG I've ever played. Like I don't like SGs. I love the look of them. And I own two SG types. I say that. But I agree. The studio and the lower end stuff, even if it's not built like a traditional Gibson, it has its own sound, and I'm drawn to that. And I get if you're into the whole, flame maple top, gold top, P90 sound, that's fine. But I'm right there with you. If they're going to do something that's a callback, then do something that at least differentiates it from something that's 20, 30 years old at this point, because the price tag certainly isn't all that different. And if I'm spending, $3,000 or more US on a brand new guitar, I'm going to get something that's relict and sounds exactly the way I want it. So yeah, it's I don't know. I think I would rather them just sit out Namm again this year, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. Obviously, I haven't played any of these guitars. Gibson, I think, had two modern golden eras. One was the early 90s. I used to own a Les Paul limited colors guitar, and it got stolen. And it was such a cool guitar. And a buddy of mine has an early 90s Les Paul, and it's just awesome. Like, they're super heavy, like physically heavy guitars, and but they've just got a thing going on, and it records really, really well. You'd never play it live because it's so heavy. Another is like the early 2000s. I've got a standard from 2002, and the top on this thing and the weight, and it's just an absolute gem of a guitar. Everyone asks if it's like a custom shop guitar, and it's not. It's a production line, a standard premium plus or something, and it's just a really, really good guitar. And I haven't played one from the last 5 or 6 years that's really done anything for me. So, I mean, this whole thing just, the extreme cynic in me just goes, this is just PR. Like, Gibson totally went to the dogs, and now they've got a new CEO, and they've got I can imagine the board meetings, right? Like, all right, we need our reps to be on message and all this kind of corporate speak. And it's just that sort of soulless corporate guitar dressed up like something from the 50s.
Yep, break out the spreadsheets. Whatever that plot says is what we're going to sell. Hit that target demographic.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Exactly. Anyway, enough crapping on Gibson. I wouldn't mind trying one of the new studios, to be honest. Like, I would never buy one, ever. But that's also, I've got access to similarly spec'd instruments for a much more affordable price. So I guess that's kind of a moot point. But all right, Well, Ibanez re-releases the Tube Screamer again. Like, cool. You know, wow.
Who would have saw that coming? So, I mean, what can you even say about this? How many Tube Screamers have Ibanez released and Maxon, whatever, combined? They're all come from the same place anyway. And then how many Ibanez Tube Screamer clones do we have? I get it. It's the 40th anniversary, whatever. But at some point, when does a market say enough is enough of the same shit over and over? And who's the insane person that buys all these models? Like, it's a...
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Right. I mean, it's a proven thing that the biggest differences between, like, the TS9, the TS808 can all be modified within one pedal. Doesn't, like, JHS have, like, a pedal called is it the Bonsai that does all the 7 or 9 different models all under one pedal? But, I just don't see... Number one, why you would spend... I mean, I'm hard-pressed to spending $100 on an overdrive pedal, let alone $250 for a collector's edition. They're workhorses to me. If you buy it for a collector's item, okay, I suppose. But, yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing with the Gibson thing. How much are we playing off nostalgia? How much are we playing off of snake oil marketing of, well, this is what Stevie Ray Vaughan used, and this is what all the metal guys use, so you have to have this one, and this is the newest, shiniest thing. So, I don't know. I've just never seen a market in any sector, but that does this sort of thing. It's just like, yeah, keep releasing the same shit over and over. We'll keep buying it. So that's another thing.
Yeah, Levi's jeans maybe. Which probably ties back into the Gibson thing, because I know the CEO is
true that
CEO of Levi's or whatever. But yeah, it's like it would have been cool if they did something. I know Boss did the whole JHS collaboration thing, but Ibanez has a lot of money. Why don't they just... maybe it wasn't feasible, but to me that seems like the most obvious thing. It's the 40th anniversary. Let's put out like an ultimate edition Tube Screamer that does everything all the old ones did. There's a brand new mode somewhere in there, and it costs this, it sort of costs the same money. This just that would tick all the boxes and maybe make people want to go and buy one. Or it's like, cool, I want to buy a Tube Screamer. I'm getting my first Tube Screamer because I'm a teenage kid. I want to tight metal sound. I've got a cheap tube amp. I want to make, I've got like a 6505. I need a Tube Screamer. I want to be able to try all the different varieties, or that would make sense rather than just here it is again. Because it's this sort of thing you can go into just a pawn shop and buy one for $50. Whether it's an old TS9 or one of the newer ones, or an 808 or a TS5 even. They all do the same thing. Or a Boss SD1 and like make a very, a few very small mods, or your boutique versions as well. So, yeah, again, that to me is just a total nostalgia trip. And the same way, how is it going to be collectible when they're going to make however many thousand of them?
Very good point. That's, I don't know. To me, it's like, I never see this anywhere else, and I think that's what bugs me coming from someone who's into, computer tech and that sort of thing. No one's selling an original Intel Pentium for the 50th time in 25 years and still buying it up. And I can't fault the manufacturers too much, because obviously people are buying the shit or else they wouldn't do it. But I'm right there with you at the price tag. What did that say? Like $270 something? I mean, you are getting into boutique territory at that point. You're getting into like original, new, old stock stuff that you can have built for you by, you can name 10 off the top of your head of all these boutique pedal builders that do this kind of stuff. So I don't know. I don't understand how this stuff keeps selling, but there you go. And to your point, a good pawn shop find for, I don't know what Bossers or, SD1s are selling over there, but they're like $30 flat over here. Yeah,
they're, like a 50 Australian dollar pedal. They're just crazy cheap, and they're good. They work. Everyone should have one.
Agreed.
On the topic of snake oil, I don't know if this is an attempt to be self-aware or not, but the cringe is very strong with the snake oil fine instruments, the Rob Chapman pedals with the I don't know if it's actual metal or it's plastic that's meant to look like metal. You know, what is it called? The Very Thing Boost and Marvelous Engine Distortion. Like, so one, you know, the built-in 4558 dual op amp. Well, I wonder what that could be a clone of, with 3 knobs.
Oh no, 2 screamer. Oh shit, well, that was a bad one. Excuse me.
You know, and a Marshall in a box pedal. You know, just again, this is just a sort of thing. It's sort of like, I get it. You know, Rob Chapman has a high profile and he's got Chapman guitars, and you know, it makes sense from a business point to take a little bit of that market, but there's just no point to me. Like, who would want this like try hard steampunk looking? It looks like something you would see in like a kind of market in a third world country where they're trying to sell Harry Potter knockoff merch.
Yeah, that's a good description. I think they're going for the old medicine bottle thing, but it's just, I agree with you. I couldn't tell if it's dipped plastic or if, no way that's actually die cast or anything. But yeah, I mean,
obviously it's the medicine bottle thing. Cure's all known bad tone.
We're bordering on parody. I mean, it's just, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Chapman's guitars aesthetically. They're fine. I've played a couple. They're for the price. I can commend them as far as build quality. I can't speak for the whole line, but in terms of the recent ones that I picked up, they were fairly impressive for the money. And it's not my thing, you know. I'll freely admit that. And I respect Rob for what he's accomplished and you know, his musical career and everything. So you know, no harm
time
there. But I get buying that sort of stuff for aesthetics. Why the fuck would you buy a pedal for aesthetics? Because that's the only thing I can see that differentiates this kind of stuff. Because as you said, 4558 op amps. Again, where did that come from? We got a gain, tone, and output knob, and then Marvelous Engine, again, being the Marshall, you know, Friedman BEOD pedal type, you know, whatever type pedal. Yeah, I mean, they couldn't have picked a more saturated spot to begin a pedal line, and it's just like a slap in the face. Snake oil, really? Like, just come on. How stupid do you think people are?
Yeah. I would rather buy shoes with Rob Chapman's name on them, honestly. Like, if he came out with a shoe that was like, this is the best shoe to step on a pedal board with, I would actually be more interested in that. Just for the fact it's like, hey, you know, the guy's clearly got hustle and he's going for something, you know, rather than, yeah.
I think I would buy hair care products before I bought these pedals.
Oh God. Anyway, enough of that. Well, yeah, for things that, I guess moving on from that in a sort of similar note, the Silver Sky now has new colors. Wow. Let the memeing continue.
Give it up for color number 8, everybody. Color number 8. Woo!
Yeah. I mean, having said that, you know, Paul Reed Smith's somebody I have a huge amount of respect for. I own several PRS guitars. They're amazing. I would really like to try a Silver Sky because I've seen some demos where they sound really good, but I just would not be able to bring, no matter how good it is, I just would not be able to bring myself to ever be seen with one. Or maybe the new colors could do that.
Maybe. Here's my problem with the Silver Sky. I guarantee it might just be one of the best, if not the best, Strat clones out there. It better be for the price. I mean, you're getting into custom shop Fender territory, at least on the lower end. But this hits a nerve with me and my problem with signature gear, and I'm probably going to make a whole video on this, but my number 2 pet peeve for signature gear is when an artist takes a stock guitar or a stock pedal and puts a new paint job on it and says, "Oh, it's my signature because it has a star here, or it's matte black instead of a whatever paint scheme." But the number one thing that really pisses me off is when someone takes a stock model from another brand and then brings it over to their brand and makes it their signature, even though it's just another clone. I mean, how weird is that when you really put it into perspective? I know why he did it. I get it.
Yeah.
You know, John Mayer's music is not up my alley, but again, I respect the guy. And, you know, I think what went on here is that he was playing Fenders, and maybe Fender said, hey, we want you to play all Fender amps. And he was like, nah, I think I'm going to stick with what I'm going to stick with. And so he, you know, got a really nice Silver Sky signature, but it's just a weird thing. I mean, can you imagine someone, I don't know, taking like the actual Gibson SG shape, you know, not bastardizing it like ESP has done or anything, but taking it to another brand and saying, this is my, you know, this is my new signature from Ibanez or whatever, you know, assuming the lawsuit stuff didn't happen. But it's just a weird concept to me.
Yeah, again, it just kind of... and having said that, I'm sure they're really great guitars, because PRS does not make shit. Like, they make really good guitars. But it's a very strange sort of business move, you know? Yeah, and it's so... That's kind of so just... Here we are at the Namm show. Yeah, we got new colors. Yeah, it's a Strat. It sounds pretty good. John Mayer's going to play it through, you know, an amp with on the edge of breakup and a bit of reverb, and he's going to sound great, and he's going to make some faces, and you know, it's cool. Like, John Mayer's great at what he does. Like, really, really good at what he does. All my favorite stuff that he does is on acoustic guitar, so there's that as well. And it's not going to make you write better songs or anything. It's just kind of like, this is the Yeezys of guitars. We were talking about shoes before, but it's sort of like... Oh my
God, that is a perfect analogy.
You know, I'm sure they're great shoes. I'm sure it's a great guitar, but like, yeah, just... I'll just leave it at that. On that topic of things that are just kind of... I guess my main gripe with all this sort of stuff is that it's just a bit boring, is the Mesa California Tweed, which I have to say sounded incredible in the demos that I heard. It looks like a really, really good Tweed style amp. The power scaling and, you know, 6v6s, which I really like. And, you know, at least, you know, we were sort of complaining about Gibson before doing the same thing. But at least they've, you know, anytime Mesa does like a throwback amp, at least it's sort of like, hey, we're going to do this, but we're going to sort of fix some of the stuff which, when it was designed in the late 40s or early 50s, were just not feasible, and now we can do them. So, yeah, it looks great, and I'm sure it's a great amp. It'd sound really good with the Silver Sky. But, yeah, I just kind of, like, Mesa is really trying to clutch that, like, dad rock... blues lawyer, rigs of dad part of the market, and I just wish they would revamp the Triaxis, or, you know, like something like that. Do a Coliseum version of the Mark V. Do something cool.
Agreed. Mesa's, like, their MO the past decade, it seems, has been, let's make a copy of someone else's amp for like 2 years and then discontinue it. I mean, like the Stiletto, you've had more experience with it than I have, but great sounding Marshall-like amp, and they don't make them anymore. And they've gone through, since what, the Transatlantic, they've done this, they've done all kinds of, they've had the Fillmore recently.
Yep, and they all sound really good.
Yeah, but it just seems like, yeah, I mean, it's the same deal with PRS. It's not like they make bad products. It's just like, it seems like they're making a competitor to literally every amp under the sun, so they can have their boogie sponsored artists play a boogie, even if they want a Vox AC30 sound.
Yeah, pretty much. And you know, like the Stiletto is a really great amp. One of my mates owns one, and I did some recording with it at the start of the year. It's killer. It's like, it's the perfect, it's like the perfect upgraded JCM 800 for people who like to drop tune. You know, like, it's 90s Metallica in a box. And yeah, this I'm sure this California Tweed as well. It's like, if you want sort of tweedy tones, it'll be great. And you know, they'll do a demo with Andy Timmons playing one, and it'll sound incredible because Andy's the man. But yeah, it feels like, you know, I'm sure the Lone Star was a pretty successful amp for them, which seemed, and however long ago that was, I know someone who has one of them. They just absolutely rave about it, about how cool it is as an amp. The model in the Axe Effects is really good. But yeah, it's just sort of like, you know, there's a few things Mesa could do, I think, which would be even like, all right, imagine, you know, everyone's doing preamp pedals. What about a preamp pedal that just gives you like a Mark IIc Plus sound? Put 2 tubes in it, you know, make it this the size of, like, chuck it in a V-twin style enclosure even. Like, that thing is going to go bonkers. You could run that into like a 2 notes, you know, amps, cab sim and power amp thing, and there's a great fly rig that has tubes that's going to have that sound. Yeah, I mean, I'd be all over that because I love the C plus thing, obviously, or the you know, I've picked up an old Triaxis this year, and it's so cool. But it would be like, imagine if you had a Triaxis that could do like a Tweedy kind of thing, and it could do the stiletto Marshall-y kind of thing, and maybe it had like, you know, like a Lone Star clean kind of thing as well. Like, say, have all the modes that it had, maybe take it to 10 or 12 and make it that little bit more versatile. And if you're going to market it, you know, people are all about the, you know, rack-mounted digital modelers now. Just market it as, hey, this is the thing if you want real tubes in your rack. Put a decent power amp simulation and IR loading in it, and even chuck it into 2 rack space, and, you know, people would be all about that.
I know I would. Just for the love of God, don't put cab clone on it. Is the only thing I would ask.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's my main contention with the Tweed as well, is that when they're working on this stuff, they're not working on stuff that I think a lot of people really want. I get it. There's R&D costs and everything's super expensive, but
yeah, definitely.
I would throw my wallet at the screen for an updated Triaxis with a legitimate, like, high resolution LCD display, and like you said, a Tweed model, a rectifier channel,
yes.
You know, updated Mark series stuff. Oh my God, it makes me aroused even thinking about it. But yeah, I'm sure the Tweed will do well, but it's dad rock,
you
for
know,
sure.
It'd be. I think the thing as well, as you said, it's like this amp, they'll probably make it for 2 or 3 years and they'll do something else. If you did an updated Triaxis, you can sell that for another 10, 15 years. You know, it's not going to get old because it's all the good stuff in one, which I think that's sort of the pressure that digital modelers have put on these traditional companies. You know, the Axe FX Ultra still sounds amazing. You know, it's much harder to dial in than the AX8 or the 3, but man, some of the amp models in there still sound exactly like the real thing, and they still sound killer, and there's really good effects in there. And, you know, it came out, 10, 12 years ago now, and they're still kind of doing the same format. You know, the advantage, obviously, with digital stuff, you can update the firmware and a few things like that. But yeah, like, imagine a 2-rack unit Triaxis with an LCD screen, more modes, and like IR loading and power amp simulation. You wouldn't really need anything else.
Totally.
We can dream.
That's about all we can do. Just write love letters to Mesa headquarters. It's the only other idea I have.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
So we talking about this abomination of an Explorer next.
Oh yeah, the EVH Shark guitar. Just, you know, like, I own a PV Wolfgang, and really cool guitar. I paid $500 for it secondhand, and for $500, it's a lot of guitar. I remember when I first went to the States, 2012, they had just come out with like the EVH branded ones, and you could get one for about $800 or $900, like the lower end one, the special, and they were really cool guitars. But why would anyone want to buy this thing? It's like nearly $3,000 US, and I swear I remember reading an old interview where Eddie's talking about his Destroyer, and, you know, he says, oh yeah, you know, I cut this big hole out of it and it kind of ruined the guitar, like it didn't sound as good.
Imagine that.
Yeah, like you remove a whole chunk of wood from a guitar and it sounds different. But yeah, I mean, looking at the specs, I'll actually bring them up now. Where is it? I mean, yeah, I mean, it looks cool. But again, this is like another thing where it's like, he's taken an Ibanez Destroyer, which is a copy of an Explorer, but a very cool copy. He's removed the best bit about it, which is like the offset thing on the lower lower like bass. It's kind of got the like Kramery looking headstock, and I mean, hey, pretty cool. 12 to 16 compound radius. I'm all about that. Jumbo frets, Palfero, that stuff's really, really nice. But that's about it. It's, sorry, I lied. The list price is about $2,000 US.
Still about $1,500 too much
yeah.
for what it is.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, why don't you just... To me, the thing with all this is my main gripe with like especially with like anything Eddie Van Halen does that's like a retro throwback. Like the Wolfgang's are a really cool guitar. They, you know, the 80s was all about the like Strat Les Paul hybrid, the Super Strat thing. And then you had Paul Reed Smith come out in sort of like the late 80s, and it was like, okay, cool. This is essentially a Super Strat, but it's got way more of the Gibson aesthetic. Sweet. And then the Wolfgang to me is like the Telly Les Paul. Like, that's a cool thing. Two iconic guitars kind of slammed together. It didn't look like anything Eddie had done before. You know, he just wanted a brand new guitar, and he designed something really functional, really easy to play, like a great modern guitar, basically. And, you know, those guitars are great modern guitars. But with the whole, like, Stripe series, to me, like, the whole ethos of, like, and the whole ethic of, like, Eddie's early stuff is it's like, I'm going to use the cheapest stuff around, and I'm going to throw it all together, and I'm going to make something that just works, and it's going to work for me and my really demented style of playing. And he went and did iconic stuff with it. So why, like, if, you know, why not take that, like, underlying ethos and apply it and go and, like, just buy some cheap parts off eBay, put them together, learn to set your guitars up, and focus on, like, learning how to play properly, rather than spending all this money on a guitar that he himself said
because that
sucked.
takes effort, Leon. We live in a capitalist society when you can just buy it and make it look like you did all the work he did. And I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I guess that's
we live in.
I mean, that's what it's for, is
gratification.
hanging in someone's basement. I'm guessing, because if I'm an Eddie Van Halen fan, and when I was like 13 or 14, I would have killed a man for his striped, Steinberger guitar. But this thing is just an absolute abomination. Number one, because I'm an explorer and body design fan in general, so to see a big chunk cut out of it does hurt a little bit. But if I'm playing Van Halen, I'm playing on a 25.5-inch scale Super Strat. I don't care what Eddie used to play at any point. It's happening on something that's a Charvel or Ibanez or his own EVH gear. So I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
Really going after. It belongs in a museum or a Hard Rock cafe, not anyone's living room.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, actually. Like, while you're eating an overpriced hamburger, you can look up and go, oh, that's cool. I saw a photo of Eddie Van Halen playing that once. I wonder if that's original. Probably not. Probably one of those Shark guitars they put out in 2019 that no one bought. Now, that to me just, like, ticks the box of, like, yeah, it just totally doesn't hit the spot in terms of, like, well, why don't you just go and buy an old Destroyer and stripe it yourself and have something unique to you? This guitar kind of, like, I don't know, I sort of like it, I sort of don't like it. I just fear that, well, I predict that this particular guitar is just not going to hit the spot for anybody. And it's in that, like, abomination kind of thing. It's the Fender alternate reality Powercaster, which could be so cool because, all right, for me, humbucker and P90, yes, really, really cool. Offset body, pretty cool. Roasted maple neck, pretty cool. They're, like, all things that sort of never need to intersect for me. Like, humbucker and a P90 on a Les Paul style guitar is pretty cool. Offset guitar with, like, a trem that doesn't work for jangly stuff, that's cool. Roasted maple on a Super Strat, that's sort of what I would want. All of them together, I feel like it's the sort of people who love offset guitars are going to hate humbuckers and roasted maple. The sort of people that love roasted maple are going to hate offset guitars. And yeah, it just, I don't know, maybe it will prove me wrong, and maybe I need to play one, it'll be awesome. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it just really is this strange chimera that I don't think will appeal to anyone.
Maybe they live in an alternate reality where all those people like every one of those features in the same guitar, but I don't think it's this one. I'm inclined to agree with you. Just seeing a Tune-o-matic on a Fender style, body is weird enough, and this guitar is weird. I agree. I'd have to give it a spin to see. I'm not a big Strat guy anyway, and I'm certainly not a fan of like the Jaguar Mustang body styles, but I could definitely fall in love with the P90 and humbucker combination, because I love single coil tones on the neck. But
yeah,
I think the jazz bass shrunk down body might be even worse than this one. And that tenor telly bass thing might top it all.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that.
What is that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, this Powercaster, like, it's pretty much in the category of like, prove me wrong. Like, I'll change my mind. It's sort of like, I would actually like to play one because it might be awesome. It might be that thing where you go, you know what, like, or it might be in like 5 years there'll be a few $100 and no one will want them, and it'll be like, hey, is this actually good? Wow, surprisingly it is. But yeah, it just, I don't know, like a Fender doing what Gibson were doing a few years ago, where it's like they're just slowly releasing weird shit no one wants, and then they're going to go bankrupt and go back to the 50s. And because I feel like Fender have done pretty well in the modern era, like in terms of having their brand rep intact and actually being pretty consistent with all their guitars. Like, even their made in Mexico guitars are pretty damn good. But yeah, strange. The shrunk down jazz bass I've always thought would be a cool guitar, and then I saw it and I was like, hey, that's a cool guitar. And then I looked at it more and I was like,
yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, so the last thing for me the last thing that I guess both of us kind of smacked our heads together and came up with was the orange pedal baby. And you made the point that it's like a worse, more expensive crate power block.
Yeah, it's the first thing that came to mind. And it's an apples to orange comparison. I'm fairly certain, I didn't do any research on it. I'm pretty sure the power block was like your standard solid state Class D thing. The big, the big like advertised point for this orange pedal baby is it's Class AB, and to not get into super specifics, but basically this is touted as being about as small as you could possibly fit a solid state AB power amp into a chassis that size, and it's supposed to have this push pull feel that you don't get out of a standard Class D. But for reference, did you ever play through the Baby Bomb, the Morse micro pedal?
I haven't, no, but I've got a buddy of mine makes like a small little Class D power amp called the Shrunken Head, and I did a demo with that, and I tried it with a DS1 straight into it, and it wasn't half bad, and it was tiny, it's but this thing, I guess you got the Seymour Duncan like power stage thing, but yeah.
Right, I was going to bring that up too. And that kind of gives context of what this is fighting against. So you got like the Baby Bomb, which I really enjoy. It's not like super articulate for modelers, but that's not what it's meant for. That's running like the $130 range. You got the 44 mag from, I think, Electro Harmonics makes that for around the same price. Like you said, you got the Seymour Duncan power stage stuff. The bigger power stage is stereo. The pedal baby's only mono. And
yeah,
all that would be okay, even at its $400 price range, if it sounded good, but it really doesn't. At least in the demos I've heard, both from Orange as well as third parties, it just sounds super flat. And whether they're not using optimum preamps or whatever, I'm gonna have to disagree with some people in the industry that think that's going to be the next big thing. I think it's a weird kind of price point to hit, because you got the budget stuff that works well for those that are going to use a pedal board setup. I don't see them packing a separate head and cab a lot of the times. And then for those that are using big boy modelers like a non-powered Kemper or an Axe-Fx, they're going to go towards stuff like Matrix. So I don't see what this is going after.
Or even all the Quilter stuff, which is I'm just looking at some of it now, like the RRP is actually cheaper, and they're smaller, and they have like a built-in preamp in there, and it seems odd, like they're just kind of not quite hitting the price point. But yeah, I mean, like a lot of this stuff, it's just kind of, for me anyway, this is all like stuff I would never even like consider buying. I'd just look at it once and go, yeah, whatever. But actually spending time to look at it and try to, I guess like we're trying to do here is sort of go like, what price point are they trying to hit? What's the like actual thinking behind all of this from like a business perspective? Who's doing their market research? Who's doing their R&D? They just really, I don't know, kind of fall into like no man's land. Not even just, like I said, for me, I wouldn't bother with a lot of it. But then when I try to think outside of my little bubble, like what would other players want? It also just kind of seems like none of this is going to be appealing to many players, if any.
Yep, I'm inclined to agree. And I mean, for $400, you're looking at a not too shit of a solid state amp with, a combo amp with either 1x12 or 2x12, bottom of the barrel speakers, but hey, you got speakers. So
like a Katana or,
Yeah, what about the Katana? Like that's everything built in, and those things sound ridiculously good for the money. So I don't know. This is just like this has no value whatsoever in 2019. It's like 3 to 5 years too late.
Yeah, pretty much. It's it's kind of like the Chapman thing. It's kind of like some of the other things we talk about where it's just like, there's this really small part of the market that isn't going to like make or break our business. We may as well just do the same thing for the same price and not try to change anything about it. Which is the guitar industry in general, and that's why for me, these are all the worst things about Namm. They're not necessarily like terrible products. I'm sure that they all kind of work, but it's just the lack of anything other than PR and marketing dollars going into them. It's just so lazy and boring and like uninspired, I think.
And a waste of store shelves that could be holding Mesa Boogie Tri-Axis releases.
Yes, exactly. But anyway, I reckon that's a pretty good summary of the worst. And this is out on, people will no doubt be watching this on my channel. So you've got questions for myself or for Ryan or comments, or if you totally disagree with us, fight us on the internet, because that's what the internet is for. And leave a comment, and if there's stuff that we missed that you think sucks a whole bunch. I don't normally like doing these kind of like this stuff sucks videos, and it's not really like the whole point of my channel. I know it's not the point of your channel, but this was a lot of fun because sometimes you just gotta have a bit of a bitch about how stupid some stuff is, and I'm sure a lot of you guys would have enjoyed listening to these perspectives. So get them in the comments, and to counter this, on Ryan's channel you can watch the best of, which has some super awesome stuff on there.